Welcome everybody to the Albion Giants League. This is Dinosaur, joined by Ted Listens and special guest joining us from Kennesaw. That it is the Evan 101. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey Dino, man, so good to see you. So excited for this set. So excited for the collegiate scene. It's always a great time. And welcome, Evan. Welcome. Thank you for being a special guest here today.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we will be witnessing, I believe, Wisconsin White facing up against uh, Ted. Ted, can you remind me who they're facing up against?
We're playing against
Louisville.
Louisville. Louisville's a returning
Louisville. That's
team.
it. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, Louisville is a returning team from last season. We saw some of their players like Chiva Jam. We saw Brandino. I feel like Spyrock was also part of the team last year, or last split last season. So I'm excited to see what Louisville has to offer coming back into this current season, and Wisconsin being a newcomer to the AGL in general. I'd like to see what they have to offer.
Yeah, I think a little bit of new, a little bit of old. We'll see
Mhm.
how that goes.
Right.
You know, the Evan. Should I call you the Evan or just Evan?
Just call me Evan. It's all right.
Evan. All right. So, Evan, I don't know if you're familiar with these two teams, but perhaps you could shed a little bit of light if you know anything.
Yeah, I
If
believe
not,
Kennesaw went on a scrim against Louisville. Actually, just a playful scrim. Brandino was a really strong player on their team. I believe we won in the end, but I think they have a strong chance against Wisconsin. Looking at their players, and yeah,
yeah. So that's exciting. I guess we'll get to see what happens in actuality. Of course, we can sit here and speculate, as it looks like we are going to move into picks and bans here, gentlemen. Evan, can you maybe shed some light, perhaps the differences that you would see in Collegiate Smite as opposed to maybe your typical competitive scene or even like the SPL, as far as picks and bans go? Are there certain things that you see that are different, or is it pretty much the same thing?
yeah. Well, in collegiate level, they mainly ban based on like who's good in the meta and who they don't like going against. Where in like professional, they know the team they're going against. They know what they want to do. Like collegiate level, they're gonna ban based on what they don't want to play against. Professional level, they're most likely gonna ban based on how they want to play themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you're not at the top level, right? There's a little bit more wiggle room, and so you can
Sure.
maybe see that take precedent where you're picking and banning more based on comfort and less on what is the absolute mathematical best god to be playing, right? As we see right now, nothing too different currently in the ban phases in regards to the meta. Morgan, Odin, and Persephone, pretty common stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that Louisville has a very strong Persephone mid, so banning that on Wisconsin was probably a really good play.
Yeah, now we see the Osiris. Osiris has been, definitely in the meta lately. Very, very strong pick. We've seen teams tend to start to fade away from it a little bit more. Uh, he seems not as strong in the jungle, although that is probably his strongest role. And in solo lane, I think that Guardians maybe are just too dominant for him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to chime in and just I really think that bans are super team dependent, right? You need, like, currently with the state of Smite, the way that the meta is, you need to prove that something is overwhelmingly dominant before it really deserves a ban. I mean, you can always lean towards mages and try to understand that their itemization is so strong, and mages in general are pretty strong right now. But at the end of the day, you have to take out the most important thing. You can ban an Artemis, but if someone picks up an Artemis, you just dive them on cooldown and make their life miserable. There's ways to play around everything, and I think that these teams are banning more so of their awareness of each other rather than the actual meta. I mean, Tiamat, Odin, Osiris, Morgan, Persephone, and I mean, make a lot of sense, but Athena still potentially isn't as strong as she was at one point.
I agree.
Yeah, I think Athena maybe not seen as strong. Still pretty good to have on your team. Those
Sure.
taunts can come in handy, and they're a pain to deal with. And so we do see, however, Artio picked up in Cerberus, two probably expected picks, maybe One not so much in this Erlang Shen, however.
Ardio is just a really good flex. I mean, it can go solo, it can go support, it can create a lot of setup for your carry, and create a lot of opportunities for your jungle to come in and dive. I mean, you're able to like lock someone down, root them, cripple them. They can't dash. But we see Wisconsin with the Erlang Shen and the Cerberus. They have a ton of CC there, right? You know, you have the taunt from the Erlang Shen's ult. You have the ult from Cerberus. You're burning beads on cooldown. I mean, you have an opportunity to really make the carries feel uncomfortable on the side of Louisville.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to execute on that now. We're seeing a Fafnir picked up towards the top as well as Artemis. Do you? I'll ask Evan. Evan, do you think that Louisville is going to try to run that double sort of ADC comp where you have like a Soul mid and then like an Artemis? Think that's the way they're leaning, or do you think they just like this Fafnir pick?
I think they're definitely running towards an auto attack based team. That Fafnir pick is very strong into that, and the audio can just slow him down, stun him, and those auto attackers can just go to town. So I definitely think Louisville's playing more into auto attack gods here.
Yeah, Ted, do you think that maybe they're playing their hand here a little bit though, picking this Fafnir second just before the next round of bans?
Not at all. I think that Louisville's very confident in their Fafnir. Their support knows that they have to protect the Artemis. The Artemis is going to frag out, and all of that buff, all of that auto attack stim is going to go right into the Artemis. And I still feel like they're going to go into a big burst mage following up in the second set of picks.
Well, looks like Wisconsin, for the time being, not interested in banning out that soul. Instead, going to opt for the Raijin. I think, gentlemen, we can both agree, or all agree, rather, that oh, that's surprising. That Raijin very, very strong right now. But even more interesting is that Louisville has opted to ban the soul.
That's very surprising. Not expected at all.
I think it's clear. I mean, I really don't think that. I think that the support and the ADC have enough camaraderie here where they know that they have faith in each other, and the Fafnir is going to be there to do everything he can to make sure that the Artemis is effective. He's there to be there for Artemis. They don't necessarily need to go a double ADC comp just because they went Fafnir. And obviously, with the banning of the soul, I mean, it lends more thought process to what they want to do when you see they didn't want to go with a magical ADC there.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think that Fafnir is very strong in his own right, and you don't necessarily need to be sort of abusing right his stim. And I suppose also they could look more towards an auto attack focused jungler or somebody like a Gilgamesh, yeah, or
Or a
Kali. Kali, be
Kali.
very good.
Wow.
Yeah,
Or a Kali.
so
Yeah.
maybe that's what they were thinking all along. I do want to talk about this Rama pick, right? I think right now Artemis kind of held as number one carry. Do you guys think that Rama is sitting there in second place, or is it maybe a different god in your opinion?
Evan, what do you think?
I honestly I don't know. It's very hard for me to decide. What do you think, Ted?
So I'm an ADC player in general, right? So I see this a lot. Artemis is a great like team fight in there, being involved directly with fights. Rama is a great individual who can play from a distance and has the opportunity to secure kills as well as secure objectives. Um, Both of them are going to play later. Both of them need help to get to the late game. Artemis has a better time early game, but Rama. uh, Ultimately, you look at Artemis's ult and you realize that her team fight ult is the best. But Rama being able to be sneaky and snipe down damage and secure stuff, I don't know. I think it's a very even matchup. Ultimately, if Louisville can protect the Artemis throughout the game, an Artemis should win. And that's where I hedge my bet. Is that if they can protect her, she's good. And if they can't protect her, then the Rama's gonna succeed.
I think them Louisville picking Kronos does go back into that auto attack mage, which
Yeah.
were kind of surprised at them banning Soul, but Kronos does make sense.
hmm It's a very late game team comp. I mean, you have a Fafnir, you have an Artemis, you have a Kronos. They're all set to succeed late, and the Kali even too. I mean, they all benefit from the game going longer. So I'm just really interested to see if Louisville can keep those components alive long and be effective throughout the game.
I completely agree.
Well, guys, I am a big fan of Kronos Mid, so I'm excited to see it in action. Hopefully, our boy is on the cast. I will also be just as excited. Take it away, Vengeance and Argent.
Thank you guys on the desk. And Argent, Louisville versus Wisconsin. And this is a little bit of an interesting comp. The Chronos coming out and the Collegiate, and that's not something we've been seeing a whole lot of recently.
Yeah, especially not with the Kronos. I mean, we saw it at the start of the season. I know Venenu tried to play the Kronos mid right at the start of the SPL season. It didn't really work out that well, and it's kind of seen a steady decline in use as time has gone on. But I know the guys on the desk were talking about with this Fafnir pick trying to get maybe another auto attack character in the mid lane. Since they decided to ban out Soul themselves, the next magical carry that one would think of is usually Kronos. So it makes sense into the comp why they chose it.
Definitely a possibility, but this matchup in mid, Chronos against Merlin, it's definitely not going to be something that easy for him to come out on top of.
Yeah, no, especially because of the Merlin's high ability damage and the fact that he just has more abilities and more damage output than the Cronus does in the early game. As we see, the pressure has already kind of been pushed back in mid, and Madison was able to actually go over and get the right mid Harpies already. I think Cronus is going to be really struggling. Once he gets his second ability online, he should have his 3-up, which will allow him to have more wave clears we see there. But all in all, this is really going to depend on if... Oh, hold on, there's some action going on in mid now.
Well, a few abilities being burned through, but not enough damage this early on that health pots aren't going to keep him alive as Rice Master manages to get back under his tier 1 tower in time. We did see Pinky have to leap away, go back to the back Harpies with his... Looks like, oh nope, sorry, there's the other team. So he's back Harpies. He's gonna get the Draugr buff down as well for his support if they decide to grab it on a rotation. But over in this dual lane, this pressure that Wisconsin's been able to apply, and not just apply it, but hold on to, has been pretty good for this first couple of minutes.
Yeah, especially with the Sobek. The Sobek adds so much threat in the dual lane as soon as he hits level 2, because then he has his pluck online, and that forces Louisville to have to play carefully, because if they step outside of the minion wave at all, or if Imperial Trinity gets to play aggressive and get a pluck off, then both the Artemis and Fafnir will be in danger.
Now, speaking of danger, they wanted to get aggressive against Madison's dual lane, but here's the jungler Hades. He's come in trying to get something going, but when he gets the knock up onto the support, they decide to back off. And in the meantime, in solo lane, with the help of his jungler Super, he's gonna find first blood onto Spire.
That's a really good counter rotation by Binky Baby there to notice that, hey, they're looking for an aggressive play on duo side. I'm already in solo side. Blue buff timers are about to come back up. If I can pop over and get a kill on the Cerberus, we can invade the blue buff. We'll be much better off, especially after they found out that Louisville was going to get out safe.
And speaking of that dual lane, we see here Jiva's doing everything he can to keep Louisville's dual lane in. He does successfully as Hades comes on back, but the damage being dealt both ways. Hades, with just a little bit of health left, manages to finally take down Synth. So that's going to be the first ADC fall of this game, but it did not go to Jiva.
Yeah, that is a bit of a, I don't want to say overstay by Hades to be in that dual lane and gank a second time so soon after the first attempt. Yeah, it works out well for them. They get a kill onto Synth, but Shiva doesn't get the kill credit, even though he still does get the level up. But now you're looking at the level differential in jungle. Hades is about a level and a half, maybe almost 2 levels down compared to Binky Baby, who's just had this time to farm now. I kind of want to throw a bit of attention over on the solo side here, since super numbers on the Ardio, which is right now very much perceived as one of, if not the best pick in the meta currently, she has a lead. And when Ardio has a lead, it's going to be really hard to try to pry that away from her.
Well, thanks to that lead in the goalie, she also got to finish her Void Shield first. And it's just allowing all this aggression we're seeing. Whereas in the mid lane, Brandino, with the help of his jungler, takes down Rice Master. But already that Merlin pressure and damage coming through over the Chronos is probably going to allow him to back here shortly and get a full item. But this time, we're seeing Wisconsin trying to pose up for a solo gank, but it's recognized early out here by super numbers. And he's got a ward that he's just got to keep crossing over back and forth. So he's just going to try and find some farm, get the Stone Maku down while he can. maybe if overaggression happens, he can come back, and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen here.
I'm kind of surprised Binky Baby didn't rotate in after seeing the Erlong standing around for so long, especially with those blue buff timers again coming back up. We see some action in the dual lane happening, some trading going on.
It looks like ults are being traded out left and right, but Sin's the one who comes out on top. And will the Sobek fall? No, not enough of the breath to burn him down. We're gonna see Desired. He wanted it bad, but just enough health for Imperial to survive. And Synth, nice bit of dancing around. But over in the solo lane, Binky Baby made a rotation, taking down Spire and Hades, giving Super not only the ability to keep on living, but a couple of assists as well. And also a level and a half and a 2-level lead has now been cemented in for him.
Yeah, if you're University of Wisconsin, you are very, very concerned because now they have a lot of these hyper carry characters getting online early. I say that, but one of the hyper carries has died a second time now in the mid lane. But with this Kali having a 2-level lead, the RU having a 2-level lead, as soon as they get online to the point where these team fights are going to be starting, as soon as the RU rotates in, University of Wisconsin is going to be in a lot of trouble. They're going to have to really figure out a way to try to shut down this solo side pressure that's going to be coming out. And at the moment, their attempts so far have not been working out too well. So if I'm them, I'm just trying to focus on getting this Merlin big and mid.
Definitely wouldn't blame them if that ended up being their focus, but for now we're just seeing some casual farming going on. Madison has their support and jungler with their mid laner, trying to see if they can even find an invade or kill opportunity, but not going to happen in the meantime with ward placement. So we do see here instead Hades making his way over to the left, but in mid, a nice little pluck throws Desired back. No follow-up damage there to help. Instead, over to dual lane Synth, even while being ganked with the ult's gonna find Shiva. He's gonna get taunted in, but the damage, he's out just in time before the heal. And oh my god, had less than 80 HP at one point during the fight and wins it all.
Hades just doesn't see the trap that Artemis had placed earlier in the minion wave, and at the taunt, he walked up to hit her and ended up walking directly into the trap, rooting him in place, allowing Synth to get that distance away out of auto attack range and finish him off. That is a huge 1v2 play by Synth. Uses the Ichabod that she got to build early over the ROM to get that kill along with Tusky, and just having the ability to turn around and win the 1v1 into the Erlong. That's going to be a big moral detriment, big mental hit onto Hades now as he's going to try to figure out where he can make these impacts, and Synth's going to start running away with the XP.
Oh, we see a 2.5, 3-level lead over in the jungle, 2-level lead in the solo. See a deficit on Louisville's mid lane, and support's up about a level, but it's now a level and a half, 2-level lead thanks to that double kill for Synth that he has gotten to take a hold of here. And Louisville, even with their mid laner dying a couple times, they're finding themselves in a great position to get to early rotations.
Yeah, Binky Baby's had a really intelligent play by working on the solo side and not trying to overextend across the map as Hades has. As Hades has ganked each lane now at least once and is trying to spread across this pressure around the entire map. But if you're focusing on one side more, as Shiva just maybe barely getting out, might be punished for staying in though.
Oh, he's gonna go up into the ultimate. Oh, the rain of arrows just isn't enough. So Synth's gonna focus on clearing the wave. Shiva's gonna back, but he's gonna miss an entire wave of farm due to this, and he has no one from his team rotating in. So there's gonna be a little bit of tower poke coming here, especially if Synth decides to stay. Over in mid, we do see Rice Master got his ultimate. He's playing about as safe as he possibly can right now. Just trying to do everything he can to make sure that he stays in this game for his team so that their work doesn't go away. But on the back end of solo, Hades, he sits on a ward for so long it lets Spire back up, get to the wave, and go, try to come take me down.
I mean, there's a 3-level lead compared to Hades and Super Numbers now, and the 2-level lead between Spire Rock and Super Numbers. So if you're the RDO, you're just laughing as they kind of walk around looking for a gank attempt, as you know they're not going to be able to kill you at all. As soon as Erlong walks in, you place down that cripple field, suddenly he loses his transformation ability, and that takes away a lot of the threat that Erlong brings to you as the RDO of knocking you up in the air. And right now, I mean, Louisville has such a big lead in all of their big team fight characters that having a level difference being down on the Rice Master in mid, that's not really impacting them at all. As Kronos, he doesn't have that big of a team fight ability. He doesn't have a big team fight presence. His main job is going to likely be pull as many abilities as he can, get the rewind off just to survive, and then re-engage off that with their super now farmed teammates.
Now we see Since finally back, got the Odibo online. Gonna find himself a little bit more of a problem to deal with over on this duo side as Desires rotate over, keep that wave from going in. But over here near the Fire Giant pit, we do see an attempt of 4 members grouping around Super. This team doesn't come and he doesn't even care, just dashing on out, knowing he's tanky enough to take a little bit of poke and not have to worry. It's interesting to see how strong he's getting to play here and just trying to do absolute bully work over in his lane right now. And this is just, I mean, at this point, I would think he would want Binky just go anywhere but his lane now.
Yeah, you already have the lead. You're not going to lose it, especially as the RDO. So if I'm super numbers, I'm telling Binky, hey, this lane, it's over in the sense of I'm not going to need any help unless they just rotate 4 people in. No one calls it. I end up getting caught out between the T1 and T2. So push elsewhere. Try to get Artemis even further ahead, or try to start some 3v3 team fights in mid to try to get your Cronus back up in level-wise.
Oh my, the damage Synth is doing to Shiva forces him up into the sky. He doesn't have his rollout when he comes down, so a nice little hail of arrows will clean him up. And oh, the blink comes in, but behind him is Desired. They're doing everything they can to stop Hades, but the taunt comes in. However, that counter damage is so much with Binky coming in. He's gonna clean up the jungle. A double kill onto Imperial Trinity, and coming in is the mid laner. But you know what? This does leave a Gold Fury open.
Yeah, I mean, this is a free Gold Fury for them. As you can see that Brandino is not even on that side of the map now, just trying to pull some farm away from the right side. And that's just a really good counter rotation in by Louisville. Synth got the 1v1, very clean play on his part, but then again, you're also 3 levels up as an Artemis. That's going to be a kind of shoe-in for a 1v1 win. But being able to rotate over to the Draugr and just delay, just buy time for your teammates to get there. Using the beads, it doesn't immune you from the 9 turns blessing, but it still buys you time from just being bursted to death immediately, and that allows the rest of Louisville to rotate in and burst them down, as Binky Baby already went 2nd item kin size here, so he's already hitting these tanks super hard. Erlong went Toxic Blade 2nd item, so if anything, that's just making the Kali hit him harder with the health that it adds on.
And then we saw the graphs a moment ago, 5,000 gold lead, almost somewhere a little around 7,500 experience lead. And let's take a look at the bottom left corner of the screen. We see player damage almost 10,000 already on the mark for Synth, sitting at around 96, 9,700. That's a lot of fighting to be doing this early on as an ADC.
Yeah, I mean, we thought there might have been a bit of an issue with Rom having a level lead onto Artemis in the early game after the first gank actually ended up working out for them. But the thing is that Artemis is seen as kind of the counter to Rom. Yeah, Artemis is normally looked at right now as the #1 ADC. Rom is the 2nd best. But in that direct matchup, Rom usually loses. And we're seeing the direct effects of that now. That as soon as Synth got even an item lead, maybe not a gold lead, but just an item lead with an early back than Shiva decided to do, that's able to still allow the Artemis to steamroll in all these 1v1s.
Oh, we see Hades found a good opportunity to get a clean invade off. Binky unable to make it in time to stop it. So he will find his way out with his life. And Synth took a few shots of the ultimate there from Shiva, but that's a big knowledge to know that that is down. In the meantime, in mid, we have a 4-man fight here against 3. In goes Ice Master taking down Imperial. The Dragon transformation comes through. They want to find more. And on the late rotation is going to be Spire, but Binky's already taken down 1. Make that 2. Bedino and Hades. Oh, falling with the tier 1 tower. And this leaves UW-Madison in an awkward situation. The first tower finally falls 14 minutes in, but they're finding themselves down nearly 7,000 gold.
Yeah, and this is another situation where Louisville, I mean, they've been pushing their lead very well. They've been taking fights where they know they can win them. They've been pushing things that they know they can happen, as Shiva ends up winning a 1v1 against Synth in the duo lane here, and now might find some trouble as Blink Beaky Baby's rotated in.
Even if he dies here, honestly, that is a huge kill for Shiva to do. Just look at the levels he gained off that one kill, closing the gap by so much. Even though he's going to be behind by almost 10 seconds in the respawn, I mean, just closing what was once a 2, almost 3 level lead, it's now realistically sitting at right around 1.
Yeah, that has to. I kind of wish we got to see what happened there, because we know Shiva didn't have ultimate for that fight. So that means that Synth walked in, used her ultimate, got Shiva's beads, and didn't use any other relics or anything else in that fight and lost it. Maybe trying to dive the T1, maybe getting a bit too big in their own shoes there. I don't really know exactly what happened there. But yeah, if you're Shiva, you're taking that kill. That is a huge boon for you. Just the gold and XP that you get from that. As we can see, the item differential now in the duo lane is cut drastically from 1.5 items to barely half an item.
And that rage item not getting any stacks on it yet, so is going to be nice for Madison. In the meantime, we do see that Rice is going to back. Looks like he's going to try and get another item online, or maybe even go ahead and buy a full item, depending on how much he's got. In the meantime, we see Desired all by himself. He's taking a little 1v2, just stunning out Brandino in the meantime, get himself an out as well. Over on the left-hand side, Synth. He was between 2 members, but Hades going for those back harpies, so there won't be any catch-out opportunity. Instead, clearing the wave lane, showing this 1.5 level lead roughly. Shiva, he's just biding time for that opportunity yet again. And honestly, we see Binky on that right side of the map. He's just holding lane for his solo laner, but it's interesting to see that with Primal Fury coming up soon, Louisville isn't making any direct moves.
Oh, they still have a little bit of time here, and as we see that the wards that they just have a lot of normal wards here. It looks like they're maybe trying to get Shiva killed before trying to go for the Primal Fury, so he doesn't have the ult to try to contest.
No, leap in doesn't hit the hammer, but going in is Synth able to find the ult and the kill after wearing down the Aegis. Tier 1 will fall just after. So Synth probably not too happy that he lost that lead, but gains it right back in the meantime. So Primal Fury is going to be the call as a result, and no one from UW-Madison is going to come anywhere near this and stay near the lanes. Unfortunately, with Pyromancer being down already, there's no opportunity to get any gold back on this one. And this looks like this may be a greedy tier 2.
I would say it'd be greedy if anyone on University of Wisconsin was rotating over, though we do see a bit of a scrap starting to happen in the Chaos side jungle here. Supernumber is getting a little bit too aggressive here, being left alone, but that tankiness on full display, not even half health after taking, I think, a full rotation from all 4 members of University of Wisconsin that was sitting there staring at her. And that's the big thing with Ardio, is that with the Vampiric Shroud and the Void Stone now online, I mean, she can just walk into your team and not have to worry about a thing.
Well, we see a taunt coming out. They want to find Synth. Draconic Transformation will leave the path to Synth wide open. Hades is going to find the kill for that one, giving himself a little bit of a boost on gold and XP. Desired going to have to find his way out. Now, I will mention that when Louisville got that tier 2 after the Primal, it did give them a 10,000 gold lead. So right now they're sitting just under by a few hundred. They're still, that is such a lead, and it's showing in these items. I mean, my goodness, we have Super already finishing off a 4th full item, and right behind him is Binky.
Yeah, this is not what you want to see if you're University of Wisconsin's having these, again, hyper carry players like Binky, who's now able to just walk down your ADCs with 0 issues whatsoever, having such a huge lead. Almost, I think Binky's pretty close to hitting 20 here, potentially probably a 20 before 20. And this is just going to be a rip and tear in all these team fights. The Collie's going to be able to walk in, use her ultimate, and walk down any member of Madison, and they just won't be able to really contest it.
And speaking of walking at, Rice Master comes to help his solo laner. They want to take Spire down, but here comes Hades trying to give a little bit of a counter. Help him out. Desired's here as well, but they're not finding any opportunity to go further in. In the meantime, Synth has made the rotation over, and with Shiva down for another 5, it's going to be a 5v4 if they catch them off in the right spot. It's a nice little ward. We're going to be able to zone Synth away. Instead, the Greatest Scorpion looks like it's going to be the call.
Good steal.
And oh yeah, good steal. A little difficult to see there at first, but like he managed to get it with the dot damage just in time. Pyromancer, however, will be the call, and with super zoning, and it's only Imperial, that's going to be absolutely free. And look at those wards from UW Medicine 3 sitting right next to each other. Louisville doesn't have any sentries there to be able to sniff those out.
Yeah, but that's not really a super contested spot unless Louisville is zoning up there. At that point, if they're zoning, it's not really going to give them too much information. I think Louisville does make a very smart play, losing the Rice Master's rewind ability with very little threat to him on that solo side fight that happened. They can't really go for a Fire Giant fight off of that point because now you're fighting without the safety of the rewind. So slowing it down, forcing them out, getting the Greater Scorpion, getting the Pyromancer, just allowing time to happen to pass for that rewind ultimate to come back up online. They have complete control over the pace of this game. And seeing that they are willing to slow it down for their members to make sure that they're going to every fight prepared, I think that's a really good sense of discipline, a really good example of how to play the map and how to play the game your way when you have such a large lead.
Speaking of large leads, we see 8-0-2 out of Binky, hitting level 20 by 20 minutes. Just showing that he's really been farming not only map, but kills as well. And he's 10 out of 15 kill participation, which is just absolutely big. But over at mid, we see a full wave pushed under that tier 1, so it looks like Louisville's going to lose their tier 1 here in mid. And they just don't care. They're more worried about this Fire Giant that is currently standing. And the only one here right now is Spire. It's going to be a little too late. Anyone else rotating in is Brandito. He barely got past the mid lane trying to rotate that way. Instead, they're going to focus more on this left side, try and find what they can, while Louisville, they're going to settle on these right towers.
Yeah, Madison there probably made the call to not contest. Maybe Spire didn't get that comms in time, or maybe he thought that there was still a chance to try to at least contest the Fire Giant and delay it from happening. But I think the call is to just give up that Fire Giant, do something like split push, like we're seeing Shiva do right now. But now, since Spire ended up getting killed during that Fire Giant siege, they're pushing into a 5v3 on the Phoenix, and Shiva's not there to defend.
Tier 2 unless will fall, but in the meantime, the right-hand Phoenix is going to fall as well. And even with the Oni Fury spawning, there's going to be no one going that way. Shiva? Not sure staying there. No, okay, he's going to back, it looks like. No, he is staying. This is an interesting decision as Louisville decides they're going to go ahead and take the mid tier 2. Have him back from Rice Master. He's going to go challenge Shiva. He may have opportunity to get there to stop the left-hand Phoenix from falling. The tier 2 finally falls as a full engage comes out from UW Madison. Digi Torment is used, but it's not going to be finding any more damage afterwards. And Shiva has to go up in there. Synth finds Hades in the meantime. Coming down, it's Otto. Rice finally takes him down. Synth gets a double kill onto Imperial, and he may be looking for more as Spire. He's being slowed as close as possibly can. And under the Phoenix, just goes super saying, I'm that tanky and Desire. Finally finish off Brandino. His way out of the Phoenix as well. And this just leaves the Oni Fury wide open, and the left Phoenix successfully defended by Rice.
I'm surprised that Louisville didn't push to just end the game off that fight. I mean, you kill everyone except for Cerberus. You've shown that you have such a lead that their front line means nothing to you. And there in that fight, what went wrong for University of Wisconsin was Spire jumped in, got an ultimate on two of Louisville's back line or front line, didn't actually hit Synth with it. And even more so, Synth was farthest up on Louisville. So there was one point where Erlong, Shen, Sobek, and Cerberus were in front of the Artemis with their Merlin just standing behind them. you have to be able to turn around and try to dump everything you have in on this Artemis. You can't let her walk down your mid laner right then, which currently is probably one of your best options of killing anyone on Louisville. So there needs to be better communication if you're University of Wisconsin, just with the front line and back line saying, hey, I need help, falling back and actually giving that peel and turning on someone who's out of position like Synth was in that fight.
Louisville's ADC finding himself at 22,000 player damage, being an absolute monster, not only in lane, but in these fights. This is really the target that Madison, they need to find that kill on right away if they want to win these fights. Even though Binky has been doing quite a bit across the map, it's obvious that since those numbers needs to be taken out of the fight quickly. But this left-hand Phoenix is going to be absolutely free. No one from UW-Madison there to contest. And with the last bit of this Fire Giant running out here soon, Louisville is making the absolute most of it.
Right now, it seems that they're definitely crossing their T's and dotting their I's, getting this mid Phoenix now. And if they win this fight on the mid Phoenix, they can end the game. If they're pushed back, no big deal. Fire's coming back up as we're seeing the sparks starting to fly under mid Phoenix.
Oh, we see Spire hit a big two-man ult, but it doesn't matter. Synth still finds one. Rice finds another. Synth gets a double, and Binky led that fight with the first kill. And Titan just absolute shredded down by those 3 carries. And that's game number 1 in 25 minutes. The way of Louisville in an absolutely convincing fashion.
Yeah, if you're University of Wisconsin, you really have to go back to the drawing board on these drafts. You gave up Artemis, who's the number 1 ADC scene right now, and Ardio, who, in my opinion, is essentially a win condition. But the most standout pick here, in my opinion, was Binky Babe, who was able to just farm and make these impactful rotations on the map. Maybe not worth a full ban for the Kali, but if you can't play against it, definitely ban it. Otherwise, try to maybe think about your draft and see what you can do that can counter something that is an auto attack based character.
It's definitely something to keep in mind going into game number 2. But to talk about how game 1 went, we have Dinosaur, we have Ted, and we have Evan on the desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Here on the desk, as stated, Dinosaur, Ted, and Evan joining us from Kennesaw State, our special collegiate analyst, if you will, tonight. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that game?
Went really well for Louisville there. That Artemis Kronos combo really just shredded objectives, towers before they even had time to contest. They saw them there, and before they could even rotate, the objective was down, the tower was down. Nothing they could really do. That Shiva split there at the end, trying to get that Phoenix, that was a bad call. Shiva should have backed, tried to help their team, but instead he decided to push down and didn't even get the Phoenix afterwards.
I feel like Louisville in that game had a lot of familiarity with each other. They trusted each other. There's a couple points where Artemis was all alone, and Kali noticed it and said, "I trust your 1v1," and then put pressure on the Merlin, which allowed. I mean, the Kronos at one point in that game was 0-2, right? Like they ended up being 3-2 and some odd amount of assists. But the Kronos was ahead and was able to be impactful and actually be ahead of the Merlin, who did so much damage early, which you wouldn't really expect. You would expect Kronos to have a difficult time trying to catch up and keep up with the Merlin. But because of how well Binky played, uh, they parlayed their pressure across the map. You know, at one point they were going to look at fire, right? And you saw Binky go over to solo lane and decide to start picking a fight with Cerberus. Uh, you know, there's a lot of reason for that Erlang Sheng, right? Hades did a really good job trying to invade camps, trying to be patient, trying to do what you want to do, but it seemed like he was playing a game of his own rather than being as familiar with his team than Louisville. Louisville just had it all together. Everybody trusted each other. You could see that throughout the game. They all had clear intent. Whereas maybe UW Madison has some time to like gel, has some time to create an identity, but for sure, it just seemed like Louisville had it more together.
Yeah, I think Louisville certainly looked a lot stronger. I think that last siege really just proved it, right? They're able to sort of pick off UW Madison one by one and run it down into the Phoenix. And Ted, I think one thing that we have to say is that this performance by by Binky. It was an absolute clinic, and it reminded me of Days of Jungle Old back in the smaller map. And I was getting a bit of whiplash trying to follow Binky around the map because it seemed like they were just everywhere.
Well, here's the thing, right? So like Hades did a really great job of like being patient, sitting in the jungle, trying to steal farms, trying to steal camps from Binky, but Binky didn't care about that. Binky wasn't like, I'm trying to match your rotations. They said, I'm creating my own rotations, right? So you might not be where I am, and I might not be making an impact immediately, but when I do make an impact, I will because I'm properly leveled. Early game, I feel like Binky was 2 to 3 levels ahead of Hades, and that's not to say anything bad about Hades. I feel like his intentions and like what his direction of what he was trying to do all made a lot of sense. He was sit like that first kill in dual lane, right? He sat there, he tried to gank and then paused and was like, I'm gonna sit at purple and hang out. And then Artemis stepped up too far with Fafnir, and then the dual lane was punished, and he was still there to take care of that. But at that same point, you have Binky who was able to farm efficiently and create a level lead and more of an impact overall. So I really I just think maybe potentially UW Madison needs a little bit more time together. I feel like Louisville probably has more time together than people would um, expect, or in contrast to UW Madison, but um, they trust each other a lot in Louisville. We can see that clearly with that first game, and Wisconsin may be working out some of the kinks, but there were really a lot of bright spots we saw. We saw the Merlin having such a great game early. We saw the Erlang having some impactful things. They just have to work together a little bit more to keep everything going.
Yeah, we are gonna move right on over to picks and bans, and while we do that, Evan, let's say you're facing Louisville. Your team is up. It's Kennesaw State versus Louisville. After that game, instead of the Wisconsin White, uh, are you banning that Collie?
Uh, I our jungler in Kennesaw, he also likes to play Kali sometimes. Although it's not a very big pick in SPL, it's not a very uncommon pick or ban. He plays Kali as well, and I have to say, going against Kali, it can be so demeaning. So I'm 100% think we're gonna ban Kali,
Yeah,
especially seeing what Louisville can do against him.
maybe you guys try to take that one for yourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would definitely be on our top priority. But for Wisconsin, I think they should ban Kali 100%.
I don't know. I think that if I'm facing up against Binky, I don't want to try to outdo him on that Collie because that is going to be quite the performance I'd have to put in. But we'll see what happens
We'll see.
here.
I do disagree there, though. I think that like Kali wasn't even min-maxed, right? Like Kali wasn't relying on her ultimate to be a survivability tool
Mhm.
as Kali normally does in that game. Kali was able to just influence the game without staying alive through her ult. So I don't think the issue was necessarily the Kali. It was more so of how their team addressed that pressure that the Kali applied. That same pressure can be through any single character in the entire game. They have to manage the pressure coming out of the jungle from the team of Louisville and decide what don't you want to play against rather than an individual character like Kali. Again, how many times did you really see a Kali ult that game? How many times do you see like a revive or any of that? You really didn't often. So I just I feel like Wisconsin's got to put themselves in a more comfortable place, regardless of if it's Kali or whoever coming out of the jungle.
I can agree, but seeing here we have that RDO ban. Louisville banning RDO doesn't want it, so I assume they don't want to play against it.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
RDO makes a ton of sense. I mean the RDO was kind of a hassle for that Cerberus over there in the solo lane, and creates a ton of annoyances with a cripple being able to lock people down, making so they can't get away. Odin still, I mean Odin, Tiamat, Osiris, Persephone, Morgan, they're all pretty meta bans. They all present the same type of idea, but we see Wisconsin, instead of letting Louisville get the Kali, Wisconsin's going to pick up the Kali and first pick you're the Kali.
Not even a
That's
chance to get it for Louisville.
yeah, that's a bold move, Cotton, as how we see Artemis being locked in for Louisville, and so a little 1-for-1 trade, I guess, in the picks and ban phase. Going back to the Fafnir, it looks like. Do you expect them to maybe follow it up with a Kronos again, or maybe they pick something else?
So
I'm hoping personally they go for Soul again. What were you saying, Bud?
personally, I will 100% admit that I was wrong in the first game in saying that I didn't believe they would go to a spot of a magical ADC in the mid lane or even in duo, and then they went with the Chronos. So I was completely wrong. But again, the Fafnir is not indicative of going with a magical or like an ADC that's magical in general. You can still facilitate the use out of the Fafnir without having a second option. Obviously, like you're min maxing, so like you still want to value a Soul or Chronos or even potentially a Freya if that's the direction you're going, but still, you can get value out of the Fafnir with just the Artemis alone.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. A Bacchus being hovered, gentlemen, and it is locked in. We are gonna see our old forgotten friend, the god of the party, the god of the drink, Bacchus.
Yeah, I really like what Wisconsin's doing, right? They grab this on her. It creates a lot of early game pressure, a lot of early game disruption, has the kill potential on the Artemis early, is able to be effective and truly kill the Artemis, and also uses ultimate to completely disregard Artemis's ult. It's a great idea from Wisconsin to go, we're not trying to be a liability in the duo lane. The Bach is questionable, but I just love the matchup more with the Anhur versus the Artemis here.
I completely agree with Ted. That Onhor is a great pick up into that Artemis. I personally love playing Bacchus, but it's very questionable seeing that first game. Bacchus is iffy.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
like, go ahead.
I think that the one thing about Bacchus, right? The one thing that kind of there's a lot of problems with Bacchus. Let's be honest. I used to be a Bacchus player myself in my day, but I think the one problem that you have is that a lot of his burp is very interruptible, and that's a lot of your damage in your kit. And so with Fafnir being your only sort of opponent, it gives you maybe a little bit more of a chance. But if he's on top of these hammers, it's just not going to matter, right?
Yeah, I don't really understand Box's point in the current status of Smite, right? His ult doesn't do enough damage. His CC is pretty reliable on not being interrupted. His dash, I mean, none of it really does enough in the current meta. You can argue so many different Guardians to take his place and be more effective. And so when you look at Guardians, you look at frontline, it's all about controlling space. It's all saying you can't be here or we're gonna be here and now we own this place, right? Fafnir does that, right? Like Artemis has the potential to do that. Tsukiyomi has the potential. And now this older one potentially also does. But Bacchus just goes, I'm here, oh, that's it. There's no real zone control or space control or damage or threat. So I'm not really sure why they focused to get this Bacchus second for their support, but maybe it's a comfort pick for their team.
Yeah, I think a lot of, in the past you would look to Bacchus too in situations where you need a little bit of anti-heal in your kit, but Sobek's still up, and I mean, to be honest with you, I think Sobek is just straight up, it's just better in every way, like more preferable to having a Bacchus. But maybe I'm wrong here. It does look like Louisville did go back to the Chronos, by the way, and they picked up a Tsukiyomi, so that's a pick I've not seen in a long time. Speaking of picks I've not seen in a long time, here's Agni being hovered as well. So this game might get a little interesting, gentlemen.
Agni's
Yep.
a really cool god. I think he has a lot of zone control, like from a distance. He doesn't really ever have to put himself in a bad position, but if he does, he also has damage to like follow up with someone trying to chase him. He's one of my mid laners' favorite picks, Falsham, and I think he provides a lot of value here. Although I really would have liked to see the Merlin come back. I feel like Merlin was kind of gutted from the Kali applying pressure on him rather than like performing badly himself. So I really would have liked to see a Merlin. The Merlin is clearly still up and was able to make an impact early, and I feel like they could have leveraged that altogether with the different picks out of duo, and also a different jungle pick. But kind of, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how it shakes out.
So like Outwash being hovered. Yeah, that is a troll hover. As Kabrakan is locked in. Looking again, the Tsukiyomi is picked up, and then they picked Agni. Do you feel like that might be a little bit of a counter because Tsukiyomi's dive is so strong, and Agni might be able to punish that using his ultimate and his abilities? He's got a lot of burst damage in his kit, right?
Yeah, and
Definitely.
I have my own opinion, but I want to hear what Evan has to say first.
You go ahead, Ted. I want to.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Barely
I
for
was
the
just
mic.
gonna agree, man. There's no worries. I definitely think Agni can just punish Tsukiyomi for using his ult, and it completely can shut down what Tsukiyomi wants to do. So, I really think Agni was a strong pick. Although Merlin would have been great to see if no Callie's there. Merlin can absolutely uh go off. But go ahead, Ted. Your turn.
No, my whole point is I just think that Louisville controls space better than UW-Madison, and it's going to be very difficult for them to properly manage their early game, mid game, late game, team fight, every situation, because the fact that Louisville has the opportunity to say you can't be here because we're here and we own this space. But I'm rooting for UW-Madison. I'd love to see them make an impact and come back, and I want to see this go to 3 games because I think they can do it. They just have to work together a little bit better.
Sure.
Well, will fortune favor the bold side of UW Madison, or will Louisville once again take the game and take the entire set? We'll find out as we throw it back to the boys on the cast.
Thank you guys on the desk. And Argent, it's do or die for Madison. They're looking at possible 2-0 sweep here from Louisville. And these comps, we're seeing the Agni brought out, Kronos run back, but this time it's Kabrakan and Tsukiyomi being brought in.
I think Braken's definitely a good look for super numbers just based off the way that they played the RDO. I think Braken kind of fits that same niche of just playing aggressive, getting into the other team, and just causing havoc. Especially since currently in the solo meta, Guardians are somewhat reigning supreme, and a lot of the warrior picks have kind of fallen off to the wayside. Even someone who's been, at the top of the top, like the King Arthur. So I feel like that solo lane is going to be struggling a little bit if you're University of Wisconsin to make a good impact into the Kabrakan here. And the Tsukiyomi, I think is going to be a really interesting matchup into the Kali because theoretically you have the disarm into an auto attack based character like the Kali, but if Hades uses the patience to hold their stun until the 2 is used by Binky Baby, can interrupt the casting of that, and that should shoe in a good 1v1 victory for the Kali. So it's really going to be about execution for University of Wisconsin.
Hope seeing quite a bit of damage being done over to Rice Master mid, and in the meantime, Shiva taking quite a bit of poke himself, already being forced to use these pots pretty heavily. Only left with 1 health pot over a minute in. And all right, numbers, we get it. You're Kabrakan and you do damage early. Already finding first blood in the first minute, 20 seconds of the game up against Spire on the King Arthur. And this time it was without the help of his jungler.
Yeah, this is what really hurts to play the King Arthur into the Kabrakan is a lot of your clear besides your numerous one abilities as we see Hades get caught out by the Tsukiyomi and Kronos in the mid. And now there's fighting and dueling. There's just chaos everywhere across the map.
Oh, it looks like Sen's in trouble, and he does fall to Imperial, but there's no bonus gold to be had. Impel will send Desired into the wall. He's probably gonna, he just falls here. He's got the enemy minions on him. So we do find across the map 2-for-2 trade. The jungle and solo will fall for the entire dual lane of Louisville.
That's definitely a good turnaround by University of Wisconsin's duo lane there. Shades of the start of last game where you have the early lead, you get the early kill. Now, coming into the second game, let's see how well they hold on to those leads. I definitely like the On-Her to Artemis matchup better than I like the Rama into Artemis matchup. It's really going to be, again, more execution on University of Wisconsin, see if they can have the patience to use their immunity of the Artemis abilities strongly here.
Using the pressure from this first blood. They're going to try and invade this blue buff, but there are 3 members of Madison here, and they are looking for blood. They don't want numbers getting away with what he got last game, and he's finding himself low. Trying to do as much damage as he can, but he's not going to find anything as he finally does fall to Spire, and any lead that was there has been absolutely wiped.
That was a really good rotation from University of Wisconsin, acknowledging and recognizing that that blue invade was coming and rotating 3 people over there just to get a kill on super numbers. And I think they also confirmed their blue buff while they were at it. So now that early kill has kind of been nullified as we see Rice Master in trouble now in mid. Doesn't have the rewind yet, was able to walk out before getting too low. if you're super numbers, you die there, but you don't feel too bad about it because you still have the better matchup into the King Arthur. You can completely stun King Arthur out of some of his channeled abilities, which is both of his threes on his stances, that offers a lot of the wave clear that he has in this lane. So you're not too worried about it, but you want to make sure you don't die anymore from this point on.
Well, a stun was attempted there, but with that ultimate taking him up into the air for a little bit, Spire's going to find himself a nice little advantage. Now, he does have to be careful. Binky is around the corner, and there's no vision here to spot him out, unless that's a ward up top, which he may have just backed into. So Spire here, it looks like, he's going to know. He's going to back off, and that is indeed the ward. So Binky rotates in. No opportunity for the gank. Spire finding himself in a much better spot this game. This time he's got the level lead. He's getting the damage there now as well, and he doesn't even have any other items but this bluestone pendant.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten to back yet to get anything since that first blood. I'm sure he didn't have enough gold to buy anything since that happened so early on. Another starter item change I kind of wanted to point out is Rice Master deciding to go with the Vampiric Shroud as we see another solo kill happen. Oh man, that's gonna be rough for Spyrock, but at least now he can get some items online, and hopefully he can, you know, survive a little bit longer into the super numbers who already had a full item built now.
Oh, we see the Tuskies been used by Sith. Jiva has to use the Desert Fury in return. But here comes Hades. He's trying to close the gap as best he can. Unable to find an opportunity to blink. The wave being there, he's gonna have to back off of this one. These minions following, they're gonna keep him a little bit longer. But it's just no concern to this dual lane. Louisville, they're still close enough to their tier 1 tower that they can find some sort of safety. But Binky's now been given the time to rotate in. The leap over the wall, Zard, he's going straight onto Binky. They secure their own buff, and the ultimate comes out from Binky as well. He's gonna try and find Hades the best he can. The ultimate being forced. He's got no help, but he wants to live, and Synth is gonna clean him up as that one goes down. But Brandino rotating in will find the kill onto Binky, and Synth has to run for his life. And Rice Master, he's coming up on the back end. Make sure this ADC can get out, but okay, numbers, we get it, my guy. You gotta stop popping up during all these fights.
Yeah, as we see, even Narwhal on the production side there is kind of tired of the 1v1s happening over here, while everything else is chaos across on the other side of the map. Super Numbers is on vacation right now. He's taking Spyrock to class, and currently, hopefully, Spire's taking some notes down. But as we see the Ancile being built as King Arthur's finalized first item, I think that is a really good pickup into the Cabrakan specifically, because it can interrupt the tremors. It can potentially keep him from getting that secondary stun that doesn't have the diminishing returns on it from happening as fast as it normally would. Just offering a little bit of counterplay, potentially some survivability as Spyrock here. Not as much magical protection as one would think, though, but hopefully enough to keep him alive as we see Super Numbers keeping up the aggression.
I'm just gonna note that Anklai got proc there, and it still didn't matter for his combo that he was doing in Synth. It's the solo kill on a Shiva, but in comes with support Imperial. He's trying to do everything he can. Okay, that's Sunder. Holy.
Yeah, I think Synth there might have gotten out if they preemptively used their bees, because they were up to immune themselves from the stun by the Bacchus burp. But holding on to it, hopefully trying to get around the corner or just get out of range. I was going to move past it. It's happening. It's just the same thing as wave clear at this point. We're just going to keep moving on.
I think Numbers just doesn't like anyone else getting attention during this game. It's like he knows, hey, we're casting someone else getting killed. Excuse me, I'm killing too, as we're seeing Hades. Yeah, Hades, you're gone, my guy.
Bit of
at this point,
there.
This is just kill after kill. Louisville, they are catching members out one at a time after the other. Madison, they're almost at the point where they just need a turtle under a tower, because every time they step out, it seems they're being caught all alone.
Synth is definitely the most viable person to gank on Louisville currently, playing super aggressive, trying to constantly push whatever they have, and they can be punished for it. It's shown to be effective to be punished for it. However, their other source of coming back into the game that they had in game one with trying to gank the Rice Master on this Chronos, that's kind of been taken away. Rice Master's playing a lot more defensively, though I say that he's invading the red currently. But he also went the Vampiric Shroud, which also a little bit more survivability than the Sands of Time that he got game one. So losing one of the lanes as a gank opportunity, you're going to really try to have to focus on Synth here. But as being shown in the XP lead and build lead right now, Synth's still thriving even with being the most vulnerable member on the team.
So last game around this time, Synth had 6,600 player damage, and we're seeing net worth here is around 6K for numbers, but damage this time, it's numbers with 4,000 player damage. Synth falling behind by about 6. Oh, and this is a nice rotation to mid early on. He's already got the tier 1 and right, but a bigger grouping over onto this left-hand side. Hades, he's wanting to help his dual lane the best he can. He's even got Imperial following him behind, but he's recognizing with enemies coming on, he wants to get out, but he runs into the one person he did not want to, and that is the Cabrakan. And with the light, oh my goodness, Binky, just yet again, this ultimate timing every single time, getting the end of Hades' immunity, taking the kill. And now Gold Fury will be the call, and this is going to be free.
Well, we still do have Shiva around, as I say, as he has to run away from the deity of death that is Super Numbers at this point, keeping him in. They're forcing out the Desert Fury, but it's too much. He can't destroy the walls. The Tremble's going to take him out. Super Numbers is taking this game by the reins and is running down the entirety of University of Wisconsin White.
I'm sorry. I just saw the pillar get put up, and it's like he just trapped himself in an ability that Numbers doesn't ever stop unless he runs out of mana or is forced to stop.
I do wonder if you place the pillar directly underneath the Cabrakan who's tremoring, does that actually interrupt it?
No, I don't believe it does, because it's not any form of actual CC outside of the slow. It would simply move him. And I believe I've seen similar interactions like that on abilities like walls that may move someone. Cabrakan still continues channeling as long as it's not something that applies a serious CC like as a stun or silence.
That might have been what he was thinking there. Maybe he thought potentially if he gets the pillar directly underneath the Cabrakan might interrupt. Otherwise, yeah, he's just sort of putting himself into his own prison there, deciding to try to burn down Super Numbers, who is going to be effectively unkillable here soon, instead of just trying to turn and break the walls, as we see a almost 2.5 item lead in the solo side here, as King Arthur still only has that on Sealy online. If you're Spire Rock, I mean, you're just trying to farm up on the solo side. You're not rotating to any of these fights. You're just trying to get levels back so you can at least come across being able to have an impact later on.
It's a very good thing Hades had the leap up there, because that ultimate came crashing right in time for him. And I know you said effectively unkillable soon. I'm pretty sure Super's already hit that. He did take an entire kit from Shiva and just felt like he had nothing to worry about. He did just take an agony bomb, a little bit of damage, but not too much. Unlike Synth, though, he's running himself very low, and this is going to be a pretty free kill here for Hades. The stun curing that one, no opportunity for any sort of relics. If he had any, beads have already been used. Instead, Synth's going to be sent back to the fountain in a way he did not want. But one thing to note here is this tier 2 tower being pushed up in solo by the minions. Just shows Spire has given so much attention to this lane, not only getting that tower back, but trying to apply as much pressure as possible as well.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of what you have to do to get back into the game. If you lose solo this bad this early on, your main goal is to just not rotate. Tell your teammates, hey, he's going to rotate in these fights. You're probably going to get your butt kicked, but just try to survive. I need to farm up. I cannot make an impact if I rotate in currently. And as we see, he has a second item online now. But one thing I did want to go back to and note was Hades has spent a lot of time on duo side this game, unlike the previous game where he seemed to try to spread all of his attention across the map and help every lane out. Now he's sitting on the duo side, going for purple invades after purple invades, trying to get as many ganks off as possible. I think that is definitely the play for Hades to make, as Synth continues to step up and continues to make themselves vulnerable, try to win these 1v1s, and it hasn't not been warding effectively to stay safe.
Oh, Spire, yet again in trouble, but this time it's with the help of Binky. It's not all just super numbers, so he's going to find the kill on Spire 1 and 5, the solo laner for UW-Madison. But one thing to talk about here is the difference between game 1 and this game 2. The levels. No one from Louisville has that serious lead like they did in the previous one at this time.
You know, we might see a lead start to grow here in duo side as you see Synth running down Shiva again and getting the kill onto the T1, but we have Hades kind of in the wings here if Shiva isn't careful.
Yeah, no, and this is, I think Synth needs to learn at this point. If he doesn't have anyone with him, he can't continue tower diving. He's been finding the past couple of times that he's gotten really aggressive to guarantee the kill onto Shiva. His jungler's been there immediately to trade out the kill, so there is no lead to really gain.
Yeah, and all these fights, they've been usually kind of trading relics on her, having to use the beads to immune themselves from the Tusky, Synth having to use the beads to probably immune themselves from an Impale or something like that, as we see University of Wisconsin getting very aggressive in the mid lane.
They want to find something, but they're not finding as much as they were hoping. The Draconic Transformation coming out. The Agony Bomb a little too early, and Hades just absolutely decimated by Rice and forced under the tower using his ultimate. We see Brandino getting under there, making sure that he cannot continue chasing him down with how much he's going to take. Instead, I see Louisville's 4 members rotate out at the farm, go over to the just now spawning Oni Fury. At numbers, I'm going back to zoning duty like I did before. It got me a kill with no fear of any contest. He's going to go help secure that Oni Fury. And Madison, Argent, what is it they need to do here? Because they're down to 6K goal deficit again.
They need to slow down the game's pace, and they've been doing that somewhat effectively by killing off Synth whenever that 1v1 has gone his way. We have Spyrock continuing to farm up now in even levels. Gold is probably still very different when it comes to just the solo laners comparing against each other. And Hades needs to find more success on these ganks. He needs to start rotating in and killing Synth before Shiva dies, so Shiva can get more off of it and actually push waves and get farm past the kill. So we see another Tusky going out, another 1v1 starting to happen here in dual lane. I think this is really their way, and that has to be their way in. We do see in mid lane, though, that Brandino does have a level lead, has been farming up safely, but hasn't really made any impact in any fights. So that is also another alternative. Try to rotate the King Arthur in finally, maybe take a 4v3 or a 3v3 that can go your way because of your CC that you have over Louisville.
Well, we do see Madison, UW-Madison doing a bit of a grouping towards his left-hand side. This Hades, he's been spotted out by Rice Master, and they're actually going to rotate down, try and catch Brandino out, but the dash away is good. In the meantime, Synth's finding himself in trouble. Desert Fury comes out. Only a few will hit, so not too much damage compared to what should have or could have possibly happened. And Imperial, he's trying to get a stun off, gets hammered down instead, and he's finding all the damage. The pillar almost helping him, but Rice Master will still clean up the kill. And what looked like a good possibility for Wisconsin has turned into near disaster. Draconic Transformation comes out. The ultimate from Binky to help his teammates out as well has put Hades in a bad situation. He's using the ultimate trying to get out, but it doesn't matter. The hail of arrows from Synth will finish him off in numbers. Under the tier 2 is going to take down Shiva with the ultimate. The tier 1 falls. The tier 2 is next, and it's only Spire and Brandino alive. Spire all alone. The worst timeline for him here. He has to go back to the Phoenix, but it doesn't matter. He's being chased, and finally, with the Phoenix focusing super, he does not want to continue the hunt.
That's audacious that they're able to dive a Phoenix while T1 was just falling. They were diving Spyrock under his Phoenix, chasing him back to his fountain pretty close to it. And we see Brandino just pushing and getting the mid T1 tower in the meantime, but that, in my opinion, is not worth getting a T1 tower, getting farm and losing both T1, T2, and Phoenix and left. This is just Louisville grouping better and grouping more intelligently than UW-Madison is. And that all was just pushed off of an unfortunate overextension by University of Wisconsin there. They tried to get the gank off onto Synth. Synth had a really good trap that he placed at his feet, knowing that Hades was going to have to jump to keep up with them. And Hades did, in fact, jump and land directly in the trap. At that point, you cut your losses, you back up, you try to look for something else later. But Imperial tried to push forward and still try to force something while the rest of his team was backing up, and that has put him out of position and just became somewhat of a dripple effect down the team where everyone kind of walked in and got killed one by one.
Oh, I see the game tried to nerf Louisville. They're removing their ADC from the game for a little bit of time, but they're able to get a pause in and allow him to come back into the game. In the meantime, teammates are just farming up, getting back to where they need to be back, spend the gold that they have in hand, and taking a look at player damage 18 minutes in, 9,200 out of super numbers, 8,000 from Binky and Sint, sitting at 7,500. These three in the team fights together have been doing absolute work, and numbers, quite a bit of that has been from just taking 1v however many.
Yeah, one thing I do want to note is Binky Baby's build here with the second item, Berserker Shield, and this is an item that hasn't seen a lot of play this season. There was some adjustments made to it, some buffs given to it after it was nerfed pretty heavily, and it seems to have not been very effective to rise the popularity up on it. But then the most recent Void Shield nerfs came in, and that made Berserkers just more pleasant of an experience and more attractive of an item to build over the Void Shield off of the percent penetration that it gives. And in somebody who is going to be auto-attacking like the Tsukiyomi as part of his kit, I'm not going to be against getting a Berserker Shield that adds attack speed and extra attack speed later on if you get below half.
Well, 19 minutes in, towers are even. There's one Phoenix lead for Louisville. They're up 9 kills, and they have an 8k gold lead. It's going to expand a little bit more as they're trying to do Fire Giant here as UW Madison. They're pushing up. They want to contest this, but they're not even getting close. The bomb coming in from Andino too little too late. Louisville has the Fire Giant. They are aggressing even further. Hades most likely going to fall here as you'll know he's popped the ultimate. He's trying to find distance, but he's managing to find it. Numbers takes down Spire Rock, and Hades the blink is good. No one able to find the range they needed to finish him off. So instead, Louisville, they're going to have to regroup together with this 9k gold lead and push down these towers. The tier 1 mid will be the call, and it's just going to fall fast. Not even a little bit of struggle for these guys. Question is, what do they push next?
I mean, honestly, you can just get the mid T2 and Phoenix or the right side. You have as much room as you want to do whatever you want. And that fight kind of goes to show how the discipline that Louisville had in game 1 with controlling the map, slowing down when need to get their abilities back up and the relics back up, that's kind of been tossed out the window. I don't know if it's just because they've somewhat just gotten at so far in the lead that they don't really care as much anymore, that they think they can win any team fights. But after they get the Fire Giant off of a really good zoning play by Super Numbers and Binky Baby, the following fight was super split up. At one point, Brandino dashed directly in front of Binky Baby at a quarter HP, or it had no other way of escaping, and Binky decided to instead ult in onto the Kali, who still had ult up. And the front line were chasing some people, the back line were chasing others. It was very uncoordinated, very unlike what we've seen of Louisville. So University of Wisconsin might have an opening if they can try to catch out one of these overextending backliners that are playing like a front line. My eyes, though, are now drawn to the second relic that Brandino picked up on the Agni with a blink. And personally, I don't see this going well in any way, shape, or form for him.
I mean, can we blame him though? He has yet to die. His dash has been working very well for him. I think he just wants to try and use this for either contesting or better getting in position for helping finish off a kill or setting one up. But one thing that draws my attention is Numbers just loves bullying people because he picked up Horrific Emblem as if he didn't do enough slow. No one has a sprint on the side of UW Madison, so they will have to burn relics if they want to get out of that. Numbers just goes on in. Hasn't popped that Horrific yet, but his teammate shredding down this Phoenix and Synth will take down Hades yet again. The wall trap coming out of Numbers. Brandino falls to Rice, and they are in the Titan Rune. Double kill here for Rice. Spire Rock's falling. 22.5 minutes in. This game is going to end. Louisville taking the Titan down. find themselves a 2-0 victory over UW-Madison.
That was just a clinic put on by Super Numbers that game too. Game 1 was a bit less of that, not as much as the superstar as Binky Baby was game 1, but game 2 he just completely took every hope that UW Madison had from being even in that game away immediately and continued to just push that pressure across the map. If you're Louisville, you're probably taking them out to a nice dinner after this.
Yeah, I thought game 1 was convincing in fashion. Game 2 was just that much more convincing of a victory for Louisville here. They're looking strong and well played together. I mean, one game it was Synth as the top dog. This one it was Numbers, and if they're able to rotate people like that, the rest of this league they may have a very good time. But to talk about this win, we've got Dino, Ted, and Evan back on the desk.
Thank you once again, Vengeance and Surge, for that wonderful cast that you have provided. This is Dinosaur, Ted, and our special guest, Mr. Evan.
Sir.
Welcome, boys. I think it would be fair to say that that was less UW Madison playing poorly and more just Louisville just
agree.
playing absolutely
Hard agree.
great smite.
Hard agree. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
No, I just said I agree. I don't,
Yeah, I think listen, UW Madison's not incompetent in how they play Smite, right? Like they're not out of place with how they play Smite, but they might be out of sync. I think that's really what UW Madison's current issue that they need to resolve is that they need to be in sync. I remember watching at one point through that game where Anher decided to dive in on the purple, and that's a play you make if you think that you're playing by yourself. That's a decision that you make where you say, I need to get my farm for myself. But competitive smite's deeper than that. Um, it's more
organized.
cooperative than that. Yeah, it's more organized than that, right? He was trying to make a play in order to ensure farm for himself and steal farm from his enemy, but he put himself in a bad position, which means his team had to try to like compensate for it, which means that his team's trying to make up for a bad decision, which ultimately puts his team in a bad situation. I think UW Medicine with some more time, with some more effort, with some time playing together, they 100% can be effective. They just need to understand what the intentions of the entire team is from the get go. I mean, a lot of people are questioning this Bacchus pick, right? But the Bacchus offers a lot of pressure early game with the Anher. Has the ability to do a lot of things earlier or cause Artemis to lose beads or lose ult. But the Kali was trying to compensate and try to apply the pressure to the Artemis while their solo laner was losing a ton of pressure because, I mean, Numbers just ran it. He just had a great time. Really not sure what the value from the King Arthur you're getting. Not sure the thought process of picking an Arthur there, but there's just I just I think UW Madison has a fighting chance in general. They have competent players. They know what they're doing mechanically. I just feel like they don't have the same type of blueprint towards execution as Louisville has.
I can completely agree. I feel like that Cali really needed to lay off Duel Lane for a little bit. Although Duel wasn't winning 100%, definitely needed to rotate to that solo. Definitely need to push Numbers back into his place because Numbers just rolled over that King Arthur, and once he came out of solo lane, there was nobody stopping him. He just
Right.
did whatever he wanted when he wanted, and
Right.
that Agni, he just wasn't there enough. When he was there, he did help people, but he wasn't there enough for me. I would have liked to see him more team fighting.
Sure. I 100% agree. I think that Agnew was trying to do as much as he could, but again, it just seemed like the team was disjoined. It seemed like everyone had their own prerogative, and there was no concise direction or intention of the team. And I think just with time and with playing experience, that the team can develop that. But Louisville clearly outclassed them as far as like team camaraderie, and hopefully, I enjoyed the set. I think that UW Medicine showed some really high spots, but they just need to develop themselves within each other more for them to be successful as far as wins.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I think that in competitive smite, sometimes the the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right?
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of times it's said that competitive Smite is very different from ranked, and that is just that's frankly very very true. And
So
so
different, right?
yeah, and so I think that we could probably look forward to UV or UW Madison, excuse me, becoming quite a good team to watch in the future once they sort of sort out their issues. But this Louisville team, I mean, all credit to them. They played some clean Smite.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I feel like they outdrafted both games, and they also played their picks to their advantage both games. I just the credence, in my opinion, just goes to the familiarity that Louisville potentially has versus UW Madison, and how they were able to leverage it and trust each other to do what they're supposed to do. You know, we saw Artemis die a couple times early, right? We saw Synth not have a great time early, which is totally makes sense for an honor. But at the same point, we saw the Fafnir that was hovering there and was staying in dual lane and making sure that his Artemis was safe throughout, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, which you don't see that. You don't see support sitting in dual lane that late in the game. Usually they're rotating in mid, but no, the Fafnir were sitting there and protecting the Artemis. And what happened? Artemis had nothing to worry about. Artemis rolled. Artemis was level 8 at one point when On Her was level 6, which if you play that matchup properly, it should be consistently even. But based off of pressure, based off of leveraging, based off of like decision making, it wasn't even. Artemis was ahead and had the help of the Fafnir. Louisville just knows where to be, knows why to be there, knows how to be there, and they know how to, really focus their pressure across the map.
Yeah, I think with that we will end the stream tonight. Uh, Evan, you are our special guest. So if there's any shout outs or anything that you want to give right now, or any closing thoughts on tonight's match, the floor is yours.
One closing thought: playing that Callie into Binky was definitely not the move. They should have picked someone else. Binky knew exactly what to do against that Callie. For shout
Dude,
outs though, for
dude,
shout outs, go
imagine
ahead.
someone playing a god and just playing so well on it, and then you go, I'm gonna grab that god, and thinking that the other person doesn't know how to play against that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just like,
Callie was not the move in that pick ban.
yeah.
All right, and for a shout out, our games, scrims, everything are streamed from our mid laner's point of view. Notice 111. So go follow him on Twitch if you will, and that's about all I have.
All right, well, I guess that is all we have for tonight. However, you can catch some more exciting collegiate action right here on the Albion Giants Twitch channel at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And until then, adios.